Hello, I'm Tom Cheshire, standing in for Neil Patterson on today's Sky News Daily. You can follow us in all your usual podcast places to make sense of the news every night on your way home. Germans will be choosing their new government this weekend, and many of them, around 1 in 5 as it stands right now, will be choosing the far-right Alternative for Germany party. We'll be discussing why and what it means for Germany and for Europe after this.
Donald Trump is heading back to the White House.
Together we can truly make America great again.
We are in for an unpredictable but fascinating 4 years.
And we're going to be following every twist and turn for the first 100 days. We'll be bringing you the latest updates and analysis first thing every morning. So join me, James Matthews.
Me, Martha Kellner.
And me, Mark Stone.
For Trump 100, every weekday at 6 a.m, wherever you get your podcasts.
Germany heads to the polls this weekend. The winner is likely to be the Christian Democratic Union, the CDU, but you might not know that because everyone is talking about a party that definitely won't win. The Alternative for Germany, the AfD, has been the story of the election because it's gained a following unprecedented for a far-right party in modern Germany. Now, the AfD have made big strides in recent years, running on a platform that many Germans find not just uncomfortable, but appalling. Most controversially, they back the mass deportation of migrants. But they're also a party of contradictions, and crucially, they're backed by around 20% of voters, a big chunk. Adam Parsons is our Europe correspondent. Adam, we've got an election in the dead of winter in Germany, the first time in nearly 4 decades. Pretty cold, but you've got the AfD and they have fire in their belly. The other parties are looking a bit worried. What's it been like in the run-up to this?
The first thing that a lot of people have taken from this election is that it's being held in winter for the first time since before the fall of the Berlin Wall. In some places, the German winter can be bitter and difficult, and that's actually changed the dynamic because you just don't get the opportunity to have big outdoor rallies when it's snowing and dark and cold. And I think probably that, in a sense, ties into the fact that this election comes out of a vote of no confidence in the Chancellor, Olaf Scholz, and a certain feeling of sort of discontent with the political establishment in Germany.
I mean, a lot of people thought Germany was perhaps more immune to a far-right resurgence compared to other countries in Europe. That seems to have changed.
Yeah, and on the back of the AfD. Interestingly, actually, that the far-left party, the Linke, is also beginning to do better than it did last time around. And I think probably there are only a few real breakthrough topics in this election. The economy is one of them. But migration is another one. I think if you go back to probably ever since Angela Merkel, the former Chancellor, allowed in a great wave of Syrian migrants. And at the time, many people supported that. Subsequently, there's been a wave of people who said that was a bad idea. And the AfD, which is this collaboration, let's be honest, of some people who you would say are certainly fiscally conservative, quite hard right, and then to its other end, undoubtedly the AfD attracts people who are extremists, potentially even neo-Nazis. It's got policies, for instance, what they call remigration. Now they've danced about whether they should support this or not, but which is effectively sending people back out of Germany, back to what somebody decides to have been their original home. For most mainstream political parties, that is unacceptable. But you have to say that at the moment, across, don't say Europe, but then probably much of the world as well, this sort of nationalist, populist, anti-migration rhetoric is itself becoming pretty mainstream.
Not all AfD voters are neo-Nazis, but all neo-Nazis are probably voting for the AfD. I mean, a lot of AfD supporters will say that. We're not Nazis, we're just concerned about the future of our country, and they'll say this is an establishment stitch-up.
I don't think you can possibly imagine that 20% of the German population are ultra right-wing racists. They're certainly anti-establishment. AfD would say is that they are about putting Germany first. They're all about preserving German culture. They're about preserving and helping the indigenous Germans and helping hardworking people to prosper. But a lot of these people are simply fed up with what they see as a centre political stitch-up of the old familiar parties coming out with what they would say are familiar policies.
With the way the German elections work, AfD, it could come second, but it's not going to be running the country because of the firewall. Can you explain what that is and also how it might add to this sense of a stitch-up by the establishment?
So this is a way of the mainstream keeping the AfD out of power. That's ultimately all this firewall is the other party saying that the AfD are unacceptable, that they are too right-wing. And clearly we need to mention, but put this in context, that Germany is a country that more than any other nation has a cultural history of fear of the extreme right taking power. So this is a way of the other parties saying that whatever happens, we're not going to go into coalition with the AfD. And German elections almost always end up with a coalition. So the AfD don't think they're going to get into power this time around, but they think what they will be able to do is to demonstrate enough support that firewall is broken down, and that by the time of the next election, that they might be able to seize power.
Alice Weidel, can you give a sense of what she's like, how she's perceived in Germany? Even if she's not going to be the next chancellor, she's going to be an important figure in these elections and for years to come, presumably.
So Alice Weidel is a very interesting character. So she is a West German at the head of a party that is most popular in East Germany. She's 46 years old. She's gay. Leading a party that hasn't exactly put gay rights at the heart of its agenda. Her partner is Sri Lankan. They don't even live full-time in Germany. They spend a lot of their time in Switzerland, and she's running a party that is obsessed with German culture and putting Germany at the heart of everything. She's a former banker who spent many years living in China, working for the Bank of China. Before that, worked for Goldman Sachs, who you would say would be the classic a bank to be at the heart of a lot of these conspiracy theories. People say that in private she's quite quiet and reserved, but you put her on stage and she is bombastic, she is unapologetic. And among the people who follow the AfD, she's seen as being the way of making the AfD acceptable to a wider cohort. Alice Weidel is seen as being able to be approachable, someone who appears in her time to becoming more and more right-wing, someone who a couple of years ago was very nervous, it would appear, of the concept of remigration. And then when I saw her speak, she spelt it out, remigration. You know, it was absolutely at the heart. And she's also down on climate change, wants to rip down windmills, you know, all of the things that you would imagine. But yeah, she is a massive contradiction, Tom. I mean, this is somebody who is a gay woman with 2 children, but who says that the definition of a family should be mother, father, and children.
For now, thank you, Adam. Still to come, we'll break down how the AfD have managed to become such a prominent force in German politics.
Donald Trump is heading back to the White House.
Together we can truly make America great again.
We are in for an unpredictable but fascinating 4 years.
And we're going to be following every twist and turn for the first 100 days. We'll be bringing you the latest updates and analysis first thing every morning. So join me, James Matthews.
Me, Martha Kellner.
And me, Mark Stone.
For Trump 100 every weekday at 6 a.m, wherever you get your podcasts.
So we've got a sense of why people are voting for the AfD, but who are the people voting for them? Jakob Guhl works within the Digital Research Unit at the Institute for Strategic Dialogue in Germany. So for the AfD, what is it that puts them in the category of being far right? It's a term that does get bandied around a fair bit. Tell us how they got there.
The AfD was originally founded in 2013 as a party that was primarily opposed to Germany's policies during the financial crisis. You know, they were opposed to the euro. They were not very happy with all the money that Germany was providing to stabilize the economy in Greece. But at the time, there were really a lot of academics in their membership, a lot of people with conservative views and a bit more critical than the average on migration. But it wouldn't have been considered a far-right party at this point. Really what we've been seeing in the 12 years since is that during the refugee crisis in 2015, when the decision was made by then Chancellor Merkel to accept a very large number of refugees into Germany, they really shifted towards anti-immigration views, but also, I think, accepted some of the more nationalist sentiment. The AfD may officially have rules against directly cooperating with far-right organizations, but they have for many, many years attended conferences by organizations that have been designated as right-wing extremists by the authorities and by the intelligence services. They have promoted far-right concepts like the Great Replacement. They have interacted on podcasts, on initiatives, on events, on protests with really overt ethno-nationalist groups. And this is really why the assessment of the party has slowly changed over time.
So it's appealing to people, quite a significant chunk of people. Who are those people? What are the key demographic? Is the AfD sort of reaching in terms of age? Is it places like East Germany? And why are they coming to them now when they didn't come to them before?
They're stronger in East Germany than they are in West Germany. Though I would say that they are by now very much a national party. They have strong backing, double-digit backing, really everywhere. Their voters are predominantly men, of course not exclusively, but around 2/3 are. They're attracting quite a bit of working class support as well. You see that also reflected in some of the issues that they're now emphasizing. You know, bread and butter issues, the economy, reducing migration, strengthening the German economy. And they're very much also in their own communication trying to contrast that with what they would describe as luxury beliefs, support for Ukraine, support for immigrants, championing of multiculturalism.
Is it voters looking around at sort of a crumbling state of affairs around them, whether it's infrastructure and society, and actually AfD are the outsiders here and say, look, all these other parties, the establishment, business as usual, we need to try something new?
I think that's part of it. But over the past 4 years, the traffic light coalition government, consisting of the Social Democrats and the Green Party and the Liberal Democrats, they faced a series of challenges. And that's really when you see the AfD rising. Initially, they really emphasize opposition to green policies. And at the same time, we have increasing immigration from Ukraine. And actually, on a communal level, locally, authorities aren't able to handle this. Whether that's true or not, it's the narrative that they're pushing. All at the same time that we're in a situation where we really can't afford it. So it's a powerful narrative in a way, if you put it like this. As they've become more radical, they've also become more popular.
So you've obviously got an environment which has been increasingly hostile towards some of those sort of more left-wing causes, but that seems to be resonating. I don't know whether it's resonating with young people, whether it's the information environment in terms of social media in Germany and TikTok and X and things like that. Are they just better at that sort of political communication than the established parties again?
It's a few things coming together here. I definitely think it plays a role that they're good at social media and new communications, who are skilled at sort of crafting the right message. And we've seen this for years. I mean, like even in 2019, 2018, I remember doing analysis in the lead up to the European election in that year. And really the AfD engagement and activity and reach was completely dwarfing the other parties. So I also don't think it's the only thing that explains it, but it definitely helps that they're always seemingly one step ahead in terms of adopting a platform like TikTok. And just being more active there, sometimes being more effective there. So they are definitely gaining among young voters as well. I wouldn't quite put it as... Some people are too alarmist about this. Some people seem to think that, young people are completely shifting towards the AfD, which is largely not the case. But you wouldn't be as much of an outlier as a young person supporting AfD as maybe a few years ago.
Yeah, and in terms of that, you've obviously got Elon Musk, who sort of very much come out for the AFD and interviewed the leader, made it a huge thing on X. But then also JD Vance, when he was coming to Europe and going to speak to the leader of the AFD, not the German Chancellor. I wonder, how does that play? Or is that the sort of thing that Germans look at and say, well, actually, that is foreign interference and we don't necessarily care for that?
It definitely increases the AFD's attention internationally. I think it'll get them quite a lot of support from the US and, the UK, and I wouldn't dismiss that. But overall, what the polling results in this area have shown is that Germans overall don't have a very positive opinion of Elon Musk. They don't like his intervention particularly. I don't think they necessarily think there was anything unlawful about it, but they don't necessarily like that someone so closely worked together with the US government is clearly pushing one party.
Are people really worried about the AfD having that big voice in Parliament, even if they're not necessarily running the country? Or are people thinking, actually, we can sort of do business with some of this?
I definitely think many people are alarmed. I think there's two trends in parallel. So the fact that there's more people voting for the AfD obviously tells you that those people specifically aren't alarmed. And also what you see in polls is that the number of people who would have said, I definitely under no circumstances would vote for the AfD, the number of those people has been decreasing over the years. And so the party has become somewhat normalized in terms of popular perceptions. But there are nevertheless is still a very large number, almost certainly a majority, including among supporters of the Conservative Party, who really do believe in the idea that there should be a firewall, that you don't directly cooperate with the far right, no matter, if you agree with them on specific issues, you don't cooperate, you don't enter a coalition. But so I think it's a mixed picture. People are definitely concerned. It's partially about the ideas of the AfD around ethnic nationalism, around the remigration policies, some of the anti-LGBTQ rhetoric that you're hearing from the party. A lot of it's around the affinity that the party often shows towards Russia. So I think there's a range of reasons why people still view this party as beyond the pale, even though it represents a significant number of Germans and of German voters.
Let's return now to Adam Parsons. Adam, who is going to be the Chancellor after the elections this weekend, and what could that mean for Ukraine?
I think that the policy positions of Alice Weidel will have an impact, even if she's going to be nowhere near that job, because the CDU, CSU are probably, next in line for the right-wing voters. They will be worried about the AfD stealing their support. And so they will look at where they can make compromises, where can they do things that would be palatable to the AfD. Now, Ukraine is a really interesting one. Germany has been Europe's biggest donor to Ukraine, second only to the United States. A lot of Germans feel that they haven't got the credit at all for doing that. Weidel is at the other end of the scale, effectively saying that Germany should stop support for Ukraine. So Merz is going to be in a difficult position of balancing those two things up. He will, I am sure, continue to be tough on migration. I think he'll be a more conservative figure than Angela Merkel. So we are probably going to see Germany going further to the right than it has done for really a long time. And remember, Merz and Merkel had no friendship at all. In fact, Merz kind of basically ran away from the party where Merkel was in charge because he thought he had no place in it. So while he will, on the one hand, instinctively want to take the lunch of the AfD, if he ends up in a grand coalition with, let's say, the Social Democrats, he's going to have to temper that as well. That coalition could be very, very complicated because the Greens and the left-wing Linke will be part of that discussion as well. And the more votes, the more seats go to the AfD, the more complicated those coalition talks will be. But this kind of populist wave is going through Europe, whether that's in the Netherlands, whether clearly in France, where the RN are doing well. in Germany, out in Romania, where they had the presidential elections cancelled, in Italy with Giorgia Meloni, of course, not just becoming prime minister, but actually maintaining a high level of popularity there. The bottom line is that Germany, with its history, but also with its enormous economic might, with a big population, if this country were at some point over the next decade to have the AfD as part of its government, that would feel now as if that is an extraordinary prospect. It's not beyond the realms of possibility that in 5-6 years' time you could have a Rassemblement National in the shape of Marine Le Pen could end up as the president of France, and the AfD could end up as having a role in the government of Germany. The United States could still have whoever follows Donald Trump at that point as president. We could be seeing a absolute paradigm shift in what is regarded as mainstream politics, not just in Europe, but across the world.
Thanks to Adam and to Jakob. That is all for today. Don't forget to follow the Sky News Daily on your podcast app. And you can tune into more analysis of the German election results on the Sky News website this weekend.
Donald Trump is heading back to the White House.
Together we can truly make America great again.
We are in for an unpredictable but fascinating 4 years.
And we're going to be following every twist and turn for the first 100 days. We'll be bringing you the latest updates and analysis first thing every morning. So join me, James Matthews.
Me, Martha Kellner.
And me, Mark Stone.
For Trump 100 every weekday at 6 a.m, wherever you get your podcasts.